You know the story. It's been drilled into our heads since we were kids. A classic tale of enlightenment. The year is 1492. Christopher Columbus, a visionary man of science, stands alone against the ignorance of his time. He faces superstitious sailors and rigid church officials who warn him that his ships will sail right off the edge of a flat, disc-shaped world and into a monster-filled abyss. But with unshakable courage, he sails the ocean blue, proves the flat earthers wrong, and not only discovers a new world, but shows everyone, once and for all, that our planet is a sphere. It's the ultimate story of reason triumphing over superstition. But what if I told you that this entire story, the one we've all seen in movies and read in books, is a complete and utter fabrication? What if I told you that in 1492, almost no educated person in Europe believed the Earth was flat? The real controversy had nothing to do with the shape of our planet. It was all about a massive mathematical blunder and a carefully constructed 19th century lie that has fooled the world for nearly 200 years. The story of Columbus the Flat Earth Debunker is one of the most persistent myths in modern history. And today, we're going to tear it down, piece by piece. Before we can expose the lie, we have to appreciate just how powerful it is. The image of Columbus, the brave navigator, battling the flat earth dogma of the so-called Dark Ages, is a cornerstone of how we think about history. Just think about it. You've seen it in cartoons, where a heroic Columbus points to a globe while stuffy officials shake their heads, pointing to a map that looks like a dinner plate. You've seen it in movies, where sailors on the Santa Maria are on the verge of mutiny, terrified they're about to sail over the great cosmic waterfall. This version of the story paints a very specific picture of the 15th century, a world steeped in ignorance, where the church and the establishment are villains, hell-bent on suppressing scientific truth. In this telling, they cling to a literal interpretation of the Bible, which they believe describes a flat earth, and see Columbus's theory of a round world as heresy. Columbus isn't just an explorer. He's a martyr for science, a man who had to sail to the ends of the earth just to drag humanity into the modern era. This myth is so powerful because it's simple and dramatic. It's a classic hero's journey: the lone genius, the foolish establishment, the high-stakes gamble, and the world-changing victory. It's a story that makes us, in the modern world, feel smart. We can look back and laugh at the foolishness of our ancestors, safe in our own enlightened knowledge. The story is so deeply embedded that it appeared in textbooks for generations, with passages describing Columbus's superstitious sailors who feared sailing over the edge of the world. It's a tale that's been passed down with so much authority that questioning it seems almost crazy. It became a historical fact by sheer repetition. But this dramatic, heroic, and comforting story has one huge problem. It's not true. To understand what really happened, we have to rewind the clock, not just to 1492, but way, way further back. The idea that educated people in 1492 believed in a flat earth is, frankly, an insult to their intelligence. The truth is, the roundness of the earth was common knowledge in the scholarly world for almost 2,000 years before Columbus was even born. This wasn't some radical new idea. It was ancient wisdom. It all starts in ancient Greece. As early as the 6th century BC, the philosopher Pythagoras, the triangle guy, suggested the earth was a sphere. But it was in the 4th century BC that Aristotle offered concrete proof that anyone could see for themselves. Aristotle made 3 brilliant observations. First, during a lunar eclipse, the Earth's shadow on the moon is always curved. The only object that always casts a circular shadow is a sphere. Second, when ships sail away, the hull vanishes first, followed by the mast. This happens because the ship is moving over a curved surface. Third, as you travel north or south, different constellations become visible. This is only possible if you're moving along a globe. This was real, observable science. And the Greeks didn't stop there. In the 3rd century BC, a genius named Eratosthenes, the head librarian at the legendary Library of Alexandria, not only confirmed the earth was round, but measured it with shocking accuracy. His method was incredible. He heard that in the southern city of Syene, on the summer solstice, the sun shone directly down a deep well, meaning it was directly overhead. He knew this wasn't the case in his own city, Alexandria. So on the same day, he measured the sun's angle in Alexandria and found it was off by about 7.2 degrees. Here's the brilliant part. Eratosthenes reasoned that if the sun's rays are parallel, that 7.2 degree difference must be caused by the Earth's curve. Since 7.2 is 1/50th of a 360-degree circle, he concluded the Earth's circumference must be 50 times the distance between the two cities. His final calculation is estimated to be within 1% to 15% of the true value, an unbelievable achievement for a man with a stick, his brain, and some geometry over 2,200 years ago. This knowledge was never lost. Roman scholars like Pliny the Elder treated it as common knowledge. And what about the Dark Ages? While the fall of Rome caused disruption, this wisdom was painstakingly preserved. In the Islamic Golden Age, scholars not only translated and saved these Greek texts, but built upon them, making their own advanced calculations. Later, in Christian Europe, the English monk Bede described the earth as an orb in the 8th century. By the High Middle Ages, this was mainstream university knowledge. A 13th century book called De Sphera Mundi, on the sphere of the world, was the standard astronomy textbook for 400 years. Every university student, including the scholars who later critiqued Columbus, had to read it. Even Dante's Divine Comedy from the 14th century describes a spherical earth in detail. So when Columbus stood before the Spanish court, he wasn't facing flat earthers. He was meeting with educated experts who knew the earth was round. The debate was never about the shape of the earth. The argument was about its size. The real reason Columbus was rejected for years had nothing to do with sailing off an edge. The experts at the Spanish court knew he wouldn't fall off the earth. They were worried he would starve on it. On this point, they were absolutely right, and Columbus was dangerously wrong. Columbus was a self-taught navigator with a bold, flawed idea. He wanted to find a westward route to Asia to cash in on the lucrative spice trade. That part wasn't crazy. Sailing west to get east makes sense on a sphere. A problem was his math. To make his voyage seem shorter and more achievable, Columbus had to shrink the planet. He made a series of critical errors. He rejected Eratosthenes' accurate calculations in favor of Ptolemy's much smaller estimate. Then he misinterpreted a calculation from a 9th century Arab astronomer, Al-Farghani, using the wrong unit of measurement to shrink the globe even more. His biggest mistake was overestimating the size of Asia. He relied on Marco Polo's exaggerated accounts, stretching the continent far to the east. When he put it all together, a smaller globe and a bigger Asia, he convinced himself the ocean between Europe and Japan was a manageable 2,400 nautical miles. When he presented these numbers to the commission at the University of Salamanca, they knew better. Their argument wasn't, "You'll fall off the edge." It was, "Your math is wrong. The ocean is vastly wider than you think. Your ships can't carry enough food and water. You and your crew will starve to death." They were the voices of scientific accuracy. Columbus was the one running on wishful thinking. Think of it like this. Imagine someone today proposed a mission to Mars, but their plan was based on believing Mars is only 10,000 miles away. NASA wouldn't reject them for believing in space travel. They'd reject the plan because the core calculation was wrong. That was Columbus. So why did King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella finally say yes? It wasn't because they suddenly believed his faulty math. In 1492, Spain had just completed the Reconquista. They were filled with national pride and eager to compete with Portugal's trade routes. Columbus's plan was a long shot, but it was a relatively cheap gamble with a potentially massive payoff. They rolled the dice. It's one of history's greatest ironies that Columbus succeeded because of his mistake. He didn't find Asia. He stumbled upon an entire continent that no European knew was there, located right about where he thought he'd find Japan. If the Americas hadn't been in the way, the experts at Salamanca would have been proven tragically right. We're about to get into the most fascinating part of this story, how this entire lie got started and who was behind it. If you're enjoying this deep dive into historical truth, take a second to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss the forgotten histories we uncover every week. Now, back to the mystery. So, if everyone knew the Earth was round, where did this myth come from? Who invented the story of the brave, round-earth Columbus versus the ignorant flat-earthers? The answer isn't in the 15th century. It's in the 19th. The myth of the flat Earth is a modern invention, and we can name the man who lit the fuse. His name was Washington Irving. Yes, the author of Rip Van Winkle and the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. In 1828, Irving published a biography, A History of the Life and Voyages of Christopher Columbus. It was presented as history, but Irving was a fiction writer at heart. He found the real technical debate about the Earth's circumference to be, well, boring. It needed drama. So he invented it. Irving fabricated the entire storyline of Columbus fighting against a council of clueless theologians who thought a round Earth was unbiblical. He wrote dramatic scenes of confrontation, painting Columbus as a lone champion of science. The book was a massive bestseller. It was beautifully written, heroic, and almost entirely fictional at its core. Irving planted the seed, but two other men, John William Draper and Andrew Dixon White, turned it into a weapon. In the late 19th century, they championed what's now called conflict thesis, the idea that history is one long war between progressive science and dogmatic religion. For Draper and White, Irving's fake story about Columbus was the perfect poster child for their argument. It was a simple parable, brave scientists versus ignorant theologians. They presented Irving's fiction as historical fact to argue that religion had always held humanity back. Their motives were tied to the politics of their own time. White, for instance, was defending the founding of the secular Cornell University against religious critics. His warfare narrative was a powerful tool. Their books were incredibly influential and shaped how people viewed science and religion for a century. The Columbus myth was their star exhibit. The story was so good, so perfectly aligned with the 19th century's belief in its own superiority, that the lie became the truth. Modern historians now reject the conflict thesis as a huge oversimplification, but the damage was done. You'd think a lie so thoroughly debunked would just fade away. But the story of Columbus and the flat Earth has a stubborn life of its own. It still pops up in pop culture and conversation. But in a twist of supreme irony, a lie invented in the 19th century to mock the supposed ignorance of the past is now being embraced by a small but loud community today, the modern flat Earth movement. The resurgence of flat Earth belief is fueled by a deep distrust of mainstream authorities like NASA. These theories, spread through social media, dismiss overwhelming evidence from satellite photos to GPS as a massive global conspiracy. What's really fascinating is how the modern movement mirrors the historical myth-making, but in reverse. The 19th century lie was created to praise scientific enlightenment. Modern flat Earth belief rejects that very establishment. For many believers, it's about identity being one of the few who gets it. It's a rebellion against experts and institutions. The original Columbus myth gave us a simple story of good versus evil. Modern conspiracy theories do the same thing, offering simple explanations for a complex world. The lie continues to echo, though its purpose has changed. The old story reinforces the inaccurate idea of the Middle Ages as a time of total ignorance. Meanwhile, the modern movement shows how easily misinformation can spread today. The myth of the flat Earth, in both its forms, is a powerful reminder that a good story, even a false one, can often be more powerful than the messy truth. Let's get this straight. Christopher Columbus did not set out to prove the Earth was round. Every educated person of his day already knew it was. The story we all learned is a 19th century fairy tale, created to push an ideological agenda. The real Columbus was driven by ambition, guided by terrible math, and stumbled upon a new world by pure luck, while the true experts of his time correctly warned him that his plan was suicidal. This isn't just a harmless piece of trivia. The flat Earth story distorts history, robbing the scholars of the Middle Ages of their credit and replacing a fascinating real story of risk and politics with a simple cartoon. The real debate over the planet's size is far more interesting because it shows people grappling with the best science of their day. What other historical facts do you think might be lies? Let me know in the comments below. Your idea might just become our next investigation. And if you enjoyed finally getting the true story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more myth busting. Thanks for watching.